Hey everybody, Barry here again. Today we're working on the Trailblazer SS intake manifold again. What we're going to do today is make a throttle cable bracket for the Trailblazer SS intake with a drive-by cable throttle body. What I have here is the throttle cable bracket from a 99 to 03 drive-by cable Chev truck, and I just cut off the back tab here because it was in the way of the map sensor port. So what we got to do is hook this one up in here and size up where the hole is going to be for the throttle cable bracket, and it's going to fall a little bit closer to the front hole there, and I'm going to drill a hole in right here so this bolts up to one port right here, and then extend a tab out here up to the front one to sort of triangulate it, make sure it's not going to wave or move, rotate. And the object of this is try and get that cable as tight as possible so there's no play in the pedal. Also, I bottomed out the idle adjustment screw so it's as far forward as the throttle is ever going to get. If I make it too tight with the throttle already cracked, I'll never be able to lower the idle speed. So this way I can speed up the throttle a little bit and have a little bit of play taken out of the cable. So right now we're going to get to cutting and see what we got to do to make this cable bracket. With the cable pulled back tight and this kept as square as it can be, I'm going to make a mark now, which will be right where the hole is. Be right here. That's pretty close. And I'll do it sort of a slotted hole just like this one here is, so we can move the bracket this way or that way to take up any of the slack. So that's our first. So of course, as I was drilling, the camera sort of fell over and moved, but this is the end result. Not quite as clean as it probably could have been, but it's a slotted hole and a bolt will fit there perfectly. So now we'll bolt this on, and the cool part about it is I'll have a little bit of wiggle room. Just enough to take up any slack that might be there if I have to adjust the idle on the throttle or anything. And I think it'll work fine. Now the second thing we got to work on is getting from this end hole on the right up to this mounting spot right here, just to triangulate it and stop it from falling over. I found an old piece of steel in my scrap pile and put it under the bench grinder and just cleaned it up a little bit. So what I'm looking at doing is putting this piece like kind of like here, somewhere like this. I'm going to try and use up as much of this flat surface over here as possible so I get a lot to weld to and it'll be a lot stronger. So I'm going to trace out the shape of this radius around here into the metal, shape it around, come around, and then cut it out with a plasma cutter, and then hopefully it'll butt up against this really clean here and I'll be able to weld it the whole way around, and then fill in this hole here, maybe cut this off on an angle back here and just make it look really nice and flush so it flows and doesn't look, you know, as homemade. And then after I'm done, I'll clean it up and paint it, and it's a little porous looking because it is old sheet metal, so I might even run a skim of filler or Bondo or something on that just to clean it up a little bit. Just to give it a little more dimension, I also bent the top piece of sheet metal so it comes down flush with the bottom part of the bracket, and that'll make it look a lot cleaner. Bracket is roughed in. I laid it about where it's going to be. This is only rough at the moment, so it doesn't matter if it's off a little bit, and vice gripped it together. And now I ran a marker along the edge, so I'm going to cut this piece of metal on this side of the mark, and then it should butt up really nicely and I'll be able to tack it together. So got to cut it with a plasma cutter and a couple seconds on the bench grinder, and it's actually really good actually. Now I'm going to put a couple tacks on it, make sure it's nice and flat and not warped this way or that way, and then we'll do a test fit. You'll have to forgive my welding. Not ideal conditions or ideal materials, tools. Using flux core welder with dirty metal is not what you should be doing. But it'll work fine for what we're doing. This is tacked now. I'm going to drill a hole in here so I can bolt it onto the intake and see what it looks like. And then when I got it sorted out right to where I want it, I'm going to trim all this up, trim this out really nice and round around here, and cut off this pretty much across here, so it'll look a lot better when it's done. It's really starting to take shape. It's bolted on in both places. It's nice and straight, it's stiff. The throttle opens and closes perfect, no binding, and our oil screw is bottomed out perfectly. So the slotted holes worked out awesome, and I've got lots of adjustment there. So now I have to clean up this area here, clean it up here, and probably cut off this old spot for the cruise control. I went ahead and welded up the bracket on both sides. I'm only going to clean up the top side because I'm afraid that if I grind down both the top and the bottom, it might sacrifice a little bit of strength, and the bottom is not going to be seen anyway, so I'm sure it'll be fine. These buffer wheels are really good for cleaning up welds and cleaning up metal, grinding it down, stuff like that, without removing too much material. Also, it's not as coarse as a stone, so it can sort of polish the metal also. So I'm happy with this, how it came out. So now I can start trimming. How cool is that? Now I can't wait to paint it and see what it looks like matching an intake, nice and black and with the cable hooked up on it. I think this is going to be really cool. We're all done. I gotta say, I'm really excited about how it turned out. It's looks really good with the black paint matching the intake. doesn't stick out like a sore thumb and almost actually blends in. So that's it for this video today. Have a good one, everybody.